Morning everyone, how are you all doing? Yeah, I thought that it would be quite a good idea to sort of revisit Bovaer's Toxicity because we've got quite a few people who are new to Bovaer, and I've even had some comments saying, what is it? You know, what is this Bovaer thing? And lots of people not really understanding dairy codes, etc, etc. Now for anyone who's new to it, this has been an evolving story for over a year, or a year exactly actually, come at the end of November. So the first thing I'm going to get into is let's look at Bovaer, its toxicity in high doses. Yeah, so Bovaer, what you'll see on the screen right now is one of the toxicology sheets that was bandied about when this all first blew up. It's Bovaer 10, and the highlighted bits are the important bits, but I'm going to read the whole document because I think it's really important to understand how Bovaer is administered. It's administered in dry feed. It has to be kind of like, it is a tiny amount, it has to be mixed in dry feed for a cow. So you just think grazing cows, this wouldn't work. And so what's if they're going to make Bovaer completely mandatory, surely then for all cows, those cows that graze are going to have to start having their grazing life, if you like, limited in order for Bovaer to be effective. So yeah, let's get into it. So it's the chemical component of Bovaer is the 3-nit. I'm going to try and say it. 3-nitrooxypropanol. That's the chemical component of Bovaer in high doses in the tests that they carried out. Cows died, rats lost their fertility, there was sort of shrinkage of ovaries, etc. in the test subjects for this. So the lines underneath that highlighted 3-nit. I'll just say 3-nit from now on. For further manufacture of feed for reduction of methane gas emissions per pound of dry matter intake in lactating dairy cows. Now all the tests, which in my view aren't sufficient. They say, oh, we did 15 years. Well, what if you're handling this stuff for 20 to 30 years in your working life as a farmer? You know, what impact would that have? It's I tell you what, if you really want to see really good insight into the farming life, go check out this video of, I think it was made by Farm Theory. He talks in that particular vlog about the realities of the costs, and it's a great channel to look at the nitty-gritty of dairy farming. And as a consumer, the more we understand about it, the better. But there's a clip at the beginning where he's in the, I don't know what they call it, the barn where they milk the dairy cows, and they're just going through the process of what they do and connecting the cows to all the machinery, and it's quite ooh. And if you as a farmer, you have to wear PPE to handle Bovaer. I know in this case that they're being milked, but when they're being fed, it's at winter it's in a barn. But if you're feeding Bovaer for 365 days a year, you're going to have to be feeding your cows inside of a barn and not allow it to graze, assuming that that's possibly what is the outcome if you have to feed Bovaer to your cows 365 days a year, because once you start feeding Bovaer, it does say you've got to feed continuously in order for the methane reduction to work. So it's all tests were only ever done for the idea of lactating dairy cows. It's not, for bulls or other animals. There's no research or extremely minimal. And then it gives gives the ingredients silicon dioxide, propylene glycol, and 3-nit, which is that chemical component that is in high doses poisonous. So directions for use: thoroughly mix Bovaer 10 into a total mixed ration at 500 and 700 g ton of complete feed. Forgive me, I don't. 100% dry matter basis to provide 27.2-36.3 mg of 3-nit per pound to 60 to 80 mg per kilogram of dry matter intake. Bovaer 10 can be incorporated into a pre-mix, then included into in the total mixed ration to ensure adequate uniformity. So there is sort of preciseness to dosages, etc. And what if a mistake happened and I don't know, a slightly higher dose was administered? What's the impact on the cow in terms of discomfort? After all, what's been happening in Denmark has been quite shocking, with farmers reporting poorly cows, and some have died as a result. I don't know, it's worrying. For anyone who asks, what about why aren't UK farmers coming out? You know, the ones that, well, they're shackled to contracts, and if they spoke out, they may well lose their contracts. It's a tricky situation. So it says, feed continuously to lactating dairy cows. Effectiveness was demonstrated in a total mixed ration containing 27.3 to 31.8% neutral detergent fibre and 5.2 of crude fat. Dietary factors influence effectiveness. Dietary factors influence effectiveness. So this is a sort of basically saying, in a workaround manner, that grazing will ruin the results, and so it's really Bovaer really suits intensive farming where cows don't see the light of day as often as cows that have go out in the sort of spring, summer and autumn. Winter, all cows would stay indoors for larger parts of the day. Whether they go out at all, I don't really know, but winter time they come in because it's cold and damp and not very nice outside. But for summer, ideally, you know, cows should be outside grazing, eating grass, and that contributes to the carbon cycle. But, you know, we've talked about that in the past. Let's crack on with this. Data supporting effectiveness has been evaluated when fed for no more than 105 days. So obviously that's a lot of days in a year. I mean, I don't know whether or not that it should be fed for 365 days, but it's always, I know in Denmark it had to be 80 days within the year. So obviously there's a sort of this large portion of your year where they want you to feed Bovaer. Methane gas emissions were measured for individual animals. Data were not evaluated at the herd. So this is important. Data were not evaluated at the herd, farm or larger scale. Data were not evaluated for other gas emissions. Milk production, feed efficiency and milk solids have not been evaluated. I mean, isn't that astounding? Data were not evaluated at the herd, farm or larger scale. Well, surely that means that they've only done research with minimal amount of cows in a sort of laboratory setting, perhaps. I don't know. And then they class that as enough research for this chemical that alters the inside of a cow's stomach to stop it from burping. Reduces by a percentage, obviously, not 100%, but still. I mean, this is completely ridiculous, based on a false premise of that cows contribute massively to global warming, when we know from that last vlog that a vlog recently about measuring methane differently to carbon dioxide, because they've realised that cows don't actually have such a massive impact. Yet this, which costs DSM-Firminech they're going to make millions from the sale, and are already for the sale of Bovaer. You know, this is a money-making situation, and it's impacting us as consumers. Do you really want to drink milk that's come from cows fed with Bovaer? Even if the traces are so minimal, it actually has no health impacts. Do we really want to alter cow stomachs so that they don't burp so much for some ridiculous premise that it stops the planet warming? I mean, No. Data supporting effectiveness has been evaluated when fed for no more than 105 days. So data supporting effectiveness has been evaluated when fed for no more than 105 days. So they don't have any research if Bovaer is fed for over 105 days, and they don't have any research from this from what I'm reading in a herd or farm or large scale setting. Data was not. Oh, hold on, I've read that bit. Oh no, that's repeated. Hold on. Dietary factors influence effectiveness, and feeding diets outside of these ranges may result in reduced effectiveness. So, like I said before, if you have a herd and they're grass fed mainly, that's your thing. You kind of want your cows to be outside for as much as possible. You're in a beautiful setting in some, I don't know, the Pennines or whatever, and I don't know, but you know what I mean. It's just, that's slightly idealistic, but you know what I mean. Those cows, if you're forced to feed them Bovaer, feeding you'll know you're paying for this Bovaer. You may get help paying for it, but that's not the point. Feeding diets outside of these ranges may result in reduced effectiveness. So you're kind of compelled or told you've got to keep your cows indoors more, otherwise Bovaer is not going to be effective. So what's the point? It's like I've said, Bovaer is completely pointless. It's completely unnecessary, and we shouldn't be using it. Caution. This is where it gets slightly interesting, especially for farmers that have to handle it. It's on a hot day in the summer where they're sweating and they've got to wear this plastic PPE. I don't know whether that includes the eye masks, a mask, the full-on, the stuff that we used to see in Convid. Do you know what I mean? Caution. Do not feed undiluted. For use in feed for lactating dairy cows only. Dairy cows only. It's only for milking cows. Not for use in dry dairy cows, bulls, replacement heifers or bulls, growing cattle or other ruminant species, because safety and effectiveness have not been evaluated in these animals. Silicon dioxide from all sources cannot exceed 2% by weight of the complete feed. I mean, just a sort of an area where mistakes could happen. A decrease in dry matter intake may be observed in some matter. Oh, that's an interesting statement. A decrease, this is all on the screen. You're not seeing me, you're seeing this. I've kind of put it massive on the screen. A decrease in dry matter intake may be observed in some animals. So some cows will see they'll be put off their food. So what effect is it having in their stomach where they're being put off their food? That's incredible. Warning, and then it gets, this is for humans, not for human use. Well, that's perfectly obvious, but it has to be said. Caution should be exercised when handling this product. 3-nit may damage male fertility and reproductive organs, is potentially harmful when inhaled, and is a skin and eye irritant, hence the PPE. Personal protective gear, including eyewear, a dust mask and impervious gloves, should be worn when handling this product. Operators should wash hands after handling. If accidental eye exposure occurs, rinse eyes thoroughly with water. The safety data sheet contains more detailed occupational safety information. Wow. Whoa. That's incredible, isn't it? Right, well, and then I wanted to highlight this. This is This is part of the the FSA approval doc. What you're seeing on the screen right now, and they used the safety analysis from the AFFAGEG. They used that as the report on that as their sort of FSA approval doc. Concentrations of 3-nop and its metabolites in milk and edible tissues are not expected to reach levels of concern. So, hey, nothing to worry about over a course of, say, 20 years of consuming dairy. And even if those traces are absolutely tiny, I think the principle of the matter is this is a chemical component that we're feeding cows in order to reduce burping by a really small percent on a bogus premise that they are contributing significantly to so-called global warming. It's just nonsense. So this is why I'm absolutely totally against Bovaer, and you should be too. Personal choice. We all have free will. It's up to you. Tell me what you think in the comments. So what I also wanted to highlight about DSM-Firminech, the makers of Bovaer, is not only does Bovaer potentially could make our milk and our more expensive over the years because the use of it costs. There's it's a sort of triple down effect. But DSM-Firminech are also investing in plant-based and alternative protein startups. Now, it's a very interesting thing. Impact the meat industry, but also invest in the plant-based fake meat industry. What's this kind of influence that you're trying to do in the meat industry, where you're potentially could make meat and milk and anything that comes from that industry more expensive by implementing or forcing it to be mandatory? Because in Denmark, Bovaer use is mandatory. Do you imagine that as a sort of business model? Having governments agree with you, and how did that come about? Where you go, we'll make your product compulsory. I mean, ka-ching. It's crazy. And then on the sidelines, you're investing in fake meat and fake plant-based partnerships. It just stinks. So you've got, you'll see it on the screen. You've got this one here, DSM-Firminech. Here we go. Here's the headlines. I won't bother with the articles because I don't want to get into that because it's too much. But you can easily look this up. But just Miele Foodtech and DSM-Firminech launched Vertis PB, a plant-based meat alternative, and that was in June 2025. There was also another one where they invested. So this is DSM-Firminech, just shouting about their support of the flexitarian movement, and this is an early one. Introducing DSM-Firminech to the plant-based innovators of the future, and that was in 2023. So they obviously it's a business, and they deal with beauty stuff, perfumes. It's I don't know, messes about with chemicals, I suppose. I wouldn't want them anywhere near my dairy herds, the UK dairy herds, that is for sure. So that's just what is Bovaer. That is what it is. DSM-Firminech and the makers, they stand to make millions if it becomes billions even if it becomes mandatory in the UK. As consumers, do we want this? Do we want our UK milk to be played with like this? It's cows go through enough as it is. Leave them to burp in their own. Bovaer is completely unnecessary. Anyway, gotta go. See you on the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye.